modern agriculture a positive or a negative on our climate change, and what other things can be done in agriculture that would improve our climate footprint and everything that we need to change our trajectory on climate change.
Now, just to clarify, when you talk about modern agriculture, you're talking about livestock and the consumption of meat as well?
Well, that figures in it too, but I'm right now wanting to know about row crops and stuff because of the effect it has on the larger amounts of water being put into the air.
So taking the meat addiction aside, where does agriculture come in climate?
So we do with row crops. Iowa is built for row crops. Transpiration of corn produces more low-level humidity, and we've seen in the trends more humidity across effectively the Midwest. Now with this humidity in the atmosphere, we're getting overnight convection. That's how we get a lot of our rainfall during the summer months. And so it's tied in with the way the crop transpires and the physiological effects that it puts on the atmosphere. So yes, there is a partnership between agriculture and the way that precipitation is falling across the state. Now those are more micro scale impacts. But yes, I spoke about cover crops and these other, we're putting in watersheds and wetland projects across the state, which are able to take runoff and make water available to farmers in drier parts of the season. So, I mean, sure, there's probably something in agriculture, the methane from livestock. We're also sequestering that in these larger dairy farms across the state, and they're using that methane to power those operations. So we're using agriculture, since we are an agricultural state, as a solution, smaller solutions, but these smaller solutions do add up. So I do think we can be an agricultural leader in terms of climate change.
Well, our farmers, again, they realize that something is going on. So we've started installing these solutions, agricultural solutions. So we can be agricultural leaders and solutions in mitigating these things that we're seeing.
So there's not a lot of denialists on the farm?
No, and sometimes we don't get into it. They see what's happening, and we go from there.
Best left unsaid sometimes.
Sure.
Agricultural state. We have agricultural solutions here. We have renewable fuels, E15. We 40% of our power generation is from wind turbines. Looking at the agricultural scape, cover crops, since we're getting into a regime in which we're getting more intense rainfall events. These cover crops act to lock in soil, they act to lock in carbon, and they prevent runoff into our streams. So just since the last agricultural census, 2012, 2017, 5 years, we've had a 256% increase in cover crops across the state of Iowa. Now that is going to make an impact, especially in runoff and water quality.
Question.
Steve Shivers with Citizens Climate Lobby, but my question is technical here. Seems to me that there's been more an increase in intense straight line wind events in Iowa. And would you agree with that? And if you do, do you think that's going to continue to be more and more aggressive?
Actually, we've had studies that show severe weather is decreasing across Iowa, and in fact, with the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, we're actually getting more vegetation at the surface, more trees, and this is slowing down wind speeds by 10% in one study. I haven't seen anything in the data that suggests more straight line wind events. This gets into talking about tornadoes back in the 1800s. Maybe they're just getting reported more. But otherwise, I haven't seen any hard evidence, which doesn't mean it's not out there, of increased wind speed events. Yeah.
I think tornadoes are one of the hardest things to connect the dots on.